Indienne is currently one of only 4 Indian restaurants within the US that holds a Michelin Star. The Chicago establishment is highly revered and serves multiple luxurious tasting menus. Indienne may just be the best Indian restaurant right now in the country, so I absolutely had to try it. It's a beautiful day today here in the Chicago suburbs. Right now I'm in the backyard of my parents' house, but I would like to talk about the dinner I had yesterday. I try to visit my parents at least every 3 to 4 months, and during that time I also want to take advantage of Chicago's culinary scene by going to a pretty notable restaurant. For this trip, I went to what may be one of the best Indian restaurants in the entire country, Indienne. Indienne is also currently one of the only Indian restaurants in the entire country with a Michelin Star. Indienne is mainly a tasting menu establishment, and in comparison to some of the other Michelin-starred restaurants in Chicago and elsewhere, it is among the more affordable restaurants. Although it is by no means cheap, but I do think they offer a decent value. Now, I've been wanting to go to Indienne since it opened, so I thought that this trip was the time to do it. And to make the meal even more special, I brought my dad along. Now, he doesn't have a lot of experience with Indian cuisine, so I thought bringing him to one of the most notable Indian restaurants in the country would be a great way to introduce him to a spectacular cuisine. So with that being said, this was my dinner at Indienne. Indienne is located in Chicago's River North neighborhood and opened their doors in the fall of 2022. The restaurant quickly garnered a wealth of praise, and the result was a Michelin Star being awarded the very next year, which the restaurant has maintained to this day. Indienne is the product of Chef Sujan Sarkar, who is originally from Kolkata. He learned and honed his craft in the kitchens of some of London's most iconic Michelin-starred establishments. While Indienne isn't Chef Sarkar's first restaurant, it's certainly his most notable, and without question, my dad and I were excited. We arrived well ahead of our reservation. We didn't want to be late. In the meantime, we grabbed some espresso at Fairgrounds Coffee and Tea and had some good conversation, but soon enough, the moment we had been waiting for arrived, and it was time to dine at Indienne. After checking in, we were soon seated at an excellent table right near the window. While the view was nothing special, the natural light was welcomed. Indienne is a fairly sizable establishment, and I thought that for the most part it had a good look to it. The restaurant is housed within a renovated 19th century printing warehouse. It maintained a bit of its historic character, but had an overall modern feel to it. Once we were settled, we were given the menu. Indienne actually has 4 different tasting menus, which include a vegetarian tasting menu, a vegan tasting menu, a pescatarian tasting menu, and what me and my dad were about to have, the non-vegetarian tasting menu. There's truly something for everybody at Indienne. It should also be noted that I had to select the specific tasting menu my dad and I would have when I made the reservation. We also decided to add on both of the menu's supplements. Next, I explored the beverage offerings. The cocktails definitely seemed interesting, but I felt like having wine that night. I ended up choosing a glass of the 2016 Lieu de Chenin Blanc from the Jurassic Park vineyard. Now, the Jurassic Park label has nothing to do with the movie, rather the vineyard gets its name for its fossil-rich and limestone-laden soils. That wine proved to be quite pleasant and had a lot of character to it. I really enjoyed it. Soon enough, we were presented with our first course, which was basically an amuse-bouche. It was dokla with curry leaf and mustard. Dokla is basically a savory sponge dish, and that one looked pretty good. That was indeed a great bite to kick off our dinner. The creation was small, but it was packed with different flavors and textures that really opened up the palate. Next up were 2 more small bites, which were beautifully presented on a stunning wooden tray. The first was a mushroom gluti, which was fashioned in the form of an eclair that also contained goat cheese and truffle. The result was a delicious 2-bite creation that nailed it in terms of texture and flavor.
That was really good. I didn't feel the heat at first, but it comes a little later.
It's slight, but it's pleasant.
That crisp eclair did have a touch of spice to it, but it was nothing too dramatic. Besides, the following bite was meant to cleanse the palate a bit. It was pani puri that was fashioned in the form of a tart. It contained passion fruit, buckwheat, and green apple. Now that was some fine pani puri.
That's refreshing.
The tart had all the character of a traditional pani puri, but had even more depth of flavor and a touch more refinement. After finishing, it wasn't long until we were presented with the next course, which was the yogurt chaat. The creation contained strawberry, mint, tamarind, and just looked simply beautiful. It was basically an edible work of modern art. That chaat didn't disappoint. It was lightly sweet with a touch of spice. Now, it didn't taste too different from other versions of the dish that I've had, but it was nevertheless delicious and certainly was pleasing to the eye. After finishing, we were presented with not only one of the best courses of the meal, but one of the best dishes I've had all year. It was the scallop caffriel with squid, young garlic, cauliflower, and golden Kaluga caviar. I was particularly excited about that course. It contains so many things that I absolutely love, and I was not disappointed. On every level, that dish was flawless.
Oh, that is so good.
First off, that scallop was cooked to perfection. It was so tender and nicely sliced, making for some easy bites. I loved the sauce it was paired with. It was nice and rich, but also had a satisfying and balanced spice to it. The squid on the bottom of the dish was excellent as well. It was so tender and delicate and sort of acted like noodles. Finally, there was the caviar, which you simply can't go wrong with. Overall, I was blown away by that scallop, but our dinner was just getting started, and the next course would prove to be equally as amazing. We were soon presented with the lobster ghee roast, which was actually a supplemental course that carried an additional $28 cost. I have heard nothing but good things about that dish, so I knew that we had to try it. The creation contained prawn yella ada, sunchoke, and mango. Visually, it was also a stunner, but at the end of the day, it all comes down to flavor, and thankfully, I was not disappointed in that department. To put it simply, that course was perfection and had to have been one of the best lobster dishes that I've ever had. First off, the lobster was cooked perfectly. It was so tender. Its accompanying elements were delightful as well, and were frankly flavors that I'm not used to having with lobster. There was a touch of spice, but it was nicely tempered by the sweet mango. Now, lobster just on its own is already a great thing, but what Indienne did was really take it to another level. Overall, that dish was spectacular and is a must order, even though it does come with an extra cost, but it was worth every penny. Next up was the lamb kebab, which consisted of shami, ribs, endive, and pickled jicama. On the side was a chili cheese kulcha, which was actually a $6 supplement, and I've got some thoughts about that. First, however, I had to try it, so I tore off a piece of the puffy bread and gave it a go. It was pleasant. It had a subtle spice and a light amount of cheese. Then I dove into the plate, which contained a lot of tiny things, and it was a bit confusing on how everything was supposed to be consumed. It definitely tripped my dad up as well.
I'm not sure how to eat this one here.
Now, having said that, everything on the plate was very good, especially that lamb rib.
That lamb cuts very nicely.
The meat was nicely cooked and had incredible flavor just on its own. Having tried everything, I then utilized the kulcha to combine it all together, which proved to be the way to go. To put it simply, that supplement is essential to the dish as it ties everything on the plate together. Without it, you just have some stuff on a plate. Granted, it was very tasty stuff, but stuff that lacks a sense of cohesion. As a result, I think the kulcha should be included with the course, and I find it somewhat ridiculous that it's a supplement. Plus, when I think of supplemental enhancements for a course, I think of things like caviar, truffles, not little pieces of bread. And considering that I'm already paying a lot of money for the tasty tasting menu, it just seems kind of cheap not to throw in a piece of bread when it really is essential to the dish. At the end of the day, however, it was still a tasty creation, and I enjoyed it despite those issues. Next up was sadly the last savory dish of the menu, but things ended strong. It was the chicken makhni, which contained red pepper, fenugreek, and black dairy dal. On the side was some fresh garlic naan. Visually, that dish was stunning. From a presentation standpoint, Indienne really delivered beautiful food throughout the entire meal. But of course, that means nothing if it doesn't taste good, so I eagerly dove right in. Plain and simple, that chicken was a masterpiece. When it hit my palate, life just seemed so perfect in that moment. Frankly, I was filled with happiness. From a texture standpoint, that chicken was as soft as could be. The meat stuffing and the sauce on the plate were remarkable. To put it simply, I have never had a chicken dish quite like that, and I loved it. I also really enjoyed the garlic naan, which was a textbook example of what naan should be.
That is perfect.
The dal it was paired with was excellent as well. In fact, when I finished the naan, I just used my spoon to scoop the rest of it up. To put it plainly, there was no way in hell that I was going to leave a single molecule of food on those plates. After finishing, we were given towels to cleanse our hands before dessert. First up wasn't an official course of the tasting menu, but rather a palate cleanser, which consisted of coconut ice cream, a coconut snow, and some other components like crumbled nuts and I believe a form of honey. Now that was a refreshing and delicious treat. The coconut flavor came through in multiple ways, each of them proving to be incredibly satisfying. Finally, it was time for the official dessert, which was the kaju katli with honeycomb, nougat, and milk ice cream. Once again, that dish was another stunner in terms of its look, and thankfully I can also say the same thing regarding its flavor. There was a pleasant nuttiness to it, which was perfectly balanced when combined with the ice cream. Overall, I had a fantastic time at Indienne, and it seemed like my dad did as well, which I was a bit worried about since he hasn't had much experience with Indian food, but the restaurant really delivered on all fronts. Not only did I enjoy some truly incredible food and excellent service, I also made another special memory with my dad. After finishing, it was time for the bill, which also came with the pedophores. The bites featured coffee and mango flavors, and both were delightful. Then it was time to deal with the bill, which totaled to $539.44. However, when I made the reservation, I did have to put up $50 as a deposit, which was then deducted from the total. As a result, I only had to pay $489.44, which already included a 20% service charge. Now, I have no problem with the 20% charge being automatically added, since I always tip at least 20%. However, the restaurant also adds a 4% surcharge to help offset the rising food and operational costs, but one can ask for that charge to be removed, which I did not. Frankly, I would rather the restaurant just charge 4% more for their tasting menu up front, rather it appearing as a surprise at the end, even though it's not a mandatory cost. Regardless, my meal at Indienne was fantastic, and I can't wait to go back. Thankfully, the restaurant just opened a second location near me in New York City, which I simply can't wait to try. Now that was incredible. Both me and my dad really enjoyed that dinner. Now I thought every course was excellent, but 3 courses really stood out. The scallop dish, the lobster dish, and the chicken dish. Those were all top tier. I'm struggling to decide which was the best course among those 3. I would probably choose the lobster, but really it's a close call because every one of those courses were incredible. Plus, all 3 of those courses have made it onto my running list of the best dishes I've had so far this year. They were all so incredible. But really, the whole experience at Indienne was fantastic from start to finish, from the atmosphere to the service to the incredible food. Now, I've been fortunate enough to have dined at some incredible Indian restaurants, but Indienne has so far been the best Indian restaurant that I've ever dined at. I'm really looking forward to Indienne's New York location. I think it will be a big hit for the city. Now, whether it's the upcoming New York location or the original Chicago location, I definitely want to return to Indienne. Plus, I'm very intrigued by their other tasting menus, which is saying something because vegetarian food, vegan food, those aren't things that get me out of bed every morning. In summation, I had a fantastic dinner at Indienne. The food was incredible and the meal was made even more special because I got to share it with my father. Without a doubt, I will definitely be returning to Indienne.